And hello everyone. Can everyone hear me at the back? I'm always a bit paranoid that you can't. Oh God, you can. Right. Hi everyone. My name's Kat and I'm here to help. I'm delighted to be here in my capacity as Head of Change Management at the Institute for Lighter Living, TM. That's IL for short. Founded in 1977, it's our mission to solve all the world's problems, one personal problem at a time. As a token of our appreciation to the organisers at CreativeMornings Edinburgh, slight advertising glitch there, CreativeMornings Edinburgh, I'm delighted to offer everyone here the chance to win an extra special, exclusive seasonal goodie bag full of promotional gifts, yay! So if you're on Twitter, please follow us at ILTMadvice. Only then are you eligible to win a goodie bag. Two lucky runners-up are going to get a free ill-advice session with yours truly. This normally costs in the region of £50, so this is not an offer to be sniffed at. We'll be announcing the winners at the end of today on Twitter and online at www.lightenup.life, which is our website. I'm not sure what more I can say about the goodie bag. Due to staffing issues, I have no idea what's in it. I can guarantee, however, that it may not be of any use to you personally, but it will definitely be of a lot of aesthetic design content, high aesthetic content. We came 8th in a poster competition recently, and there were more than 8 entrants, I'd like to emphasize. And maybe you don't want the goodie bag yourself, but if you haven't got any Christmas presents for someone you hate yet, then yeah, maybe you'll be grateful to have won it. I'm not sure what more I can say about the Institute for Lighter Living, but before I alienate you all, I'm going to step out of character now and show you what lies beneath. Thank you very much. When Alex and I met a few weeks ago, just to talk about the topic of fantasy, she mentioned that one reason they thought about me to talk about it is that I never seemed to slip out of character when I was on stage. No one had ever said that to me before, and it got me thinking, and I wondered where that was coming from, and I realized that it was basically because I'd learnt to be a character when I was a child, or multiple characters. Here are some of my multiple personalities over the years. And that basically I wasn't an authentic being at all for most of my life. It was because I had to learn to use my fantasy to survive as a child. And before I come back to that, this is one of my favorites. I just thought I had to get that in there. I looked on the internet to see what other people thought fantasy was, just to see if we had the same definitions of it, and we don't, basically. I took issue with a lot of them. The first one, which grated me a bit, was it's an idea which has no basis in reality. Whose reality are we talking about here? Like, according to my belief system, each of us has our own realities. Maybe you don't believe that, but I do, which means that my reality may or may not coincide with yours at any given moment in time. I might have a fanciful idea, as in it's fanciful for your reality, but in my reality it does have a basis. So what are we talking about? Like, maybe for someone this is real. This is Leipzig. This is someone's definition of Leipzig gone crazy. It's a postcard series where this may not be happening at the moment, but maybe it is in their reality. We don't really know. So this is fantasy for me personally at the moment, but maybe it's their reality. Another definition which grated me a bit was it's basically something which is highly improbable. It's the activity of imagining something which is highly improbable or impossible. And again, as far as I'm concerned, nothing is impossible. Something might be highly improbable, but actually everything is possible. I'll give you an example of this. Like, miracles happen in my life every day, and I'm not talking about like headline news-breaking things. More like really weird, peculiar synchronicities, which if I told you about it beforehand, or even thought about it beforehand myself, I'd think that's a product of fantasy. So it's got no basis in reality. And one example of that is I recently locked myself out of my flat. This doesn't happen very often to me. In fact, this was the second time in my life which it happened, because I'm pretty obsessive about taking my keys with me. The spare set of keys was inside the flat, and I knew I could ring the landlord, and that would be like a 3-hour round trip from where I was. I'd not only annoy him, I'd waste a lot of time. So I thought, what am I going to do? And then I realized that for the first time in my life, I'd left the window open to the garden, and I live on the first floor, and actually it would be possible to get in if I could get a ladder which is high enough. I live in a tenement block, so I was like, I'm not sure about that. Don't know where to get a ladder. But anyway, I left the house being quite optimistic. I went into the nearest pub, and there were only 2 people in there. There was the landlord and a bloke sitting in the corner. And I said, I've got a strange question, but does anyone here have a really, really tall ladder? The bloke in the corner said, yes, I do. I'm a window cleaner. And I'm like, great, who else would have a tall ladder? He said, yeah, I happen to have stashed one around the corner from here. And I was like, why do you need to stash ladder? He said, I've been done for drunk driving, so I'm not allowed to drive for a year, which is why I have to hide ladders all around town if I want to continue working. I don't live anywhere near here. I just happen to be in this pub right now having a pint to continue with the drunk driving theme. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. He said, well, I've got time to help now. So he finished his pint, went and got the ladder. I didn't have keys to get into the stairwell, and I only know one other person there who lives next door to me. I rang the bell. She happened to be in. She's never in. But anyway, she happened to be in. She let me in. I let the window cleaner in with his ladder. The ladder just reached from the garden to my window. He climbed up, he went into my flat, he got my keys for me and let me in. As far as I'm concerned, before that happened, that was fantasy for me. But it did actually happen, so it was reality, even though it was improbable, but it wasn't impossible. Those definitions for me, I mean, all the ones I found on the internet were pretty negative. I thought, what's going on here? I really appreciate the definition which CreativeMornings gave, which is a space for imagining something which is possible, which seems beyond reach, but it's not. If we use our creativity, then we can make something which seems to be fantasy become reality. That seems far closer to the origins of the word. I really like linguistics, so I spent hours researching this, and you're very lucky I'm not going to tell you all about it. But basically, it comes from ancient Greek, fantasising, which means to make something visible or to bring something to light, to have visions about something, and I much prefer that as in using fantasy as a tool for imagination to make something supposedly miraculous be brought into the light. And I use this to illustrate that. I don't know what I was on. I was about 6 years old when I made this, but I like the fact that it says, it is light, the day is bright. And what's also slightly disconcerting is if you look in the bottom corner there, if you go down to the woods today, go alone, like underlined. Which leads me to what I'm actually going to talk about, which is how fantasy saved my life, yay, and almost killed me. So go to the woods alone is like a harbinger of a bit of doom there. Fantasy has not just been a positive tool in my life, but also quite a destructive one, and that's what I'd like to talk about now. When I was 3 years old, we moved from Sumner in New Zealand, that's a small town in the South Island, to Newport-on-Tay, and that's a village opposite Dundee, so across the estuary in Scotland. And I went to nursery school and primary school there, and every afternoon when I got back from school, I'd create a new play, so basically use my imagination and fantasy with my best friend Katie. We had uninhibited, weird combined fantasies, and we'd create amazing things every single day. This could have been one of our fantasies, as in I could have been mushroom, she could have been pipe, who knows. But anyway, we went crazy and had a lot of fun. And we'd rehearse it all afternoon, and then have to show my long-suffering father when he came home from work what we'd done, which would take hours. So thanks, Dad, for putting up with that. We had amazing furniture. It was basically made out of foam and highly flammable, though I never put that to test. I often wanted to. Anyway, we had amazing foam furniture, so we could create a different stage set every single day. I'd basically found my thing, like the thing I'm supposed to be doing. I love doing this. I could have continued doing that for the rest of my life, but sadly I wasn't given the opportunity. When I was 6 years old, I was sent to a really brutal Christian boarding school. I'm laughing at this because it is actually quite funny. Imagine Hogwarts, except there's no magic, there's no camaraderie, there's no fun, and there are no film cameras. The first 12 hours were a baptism of fire for me. I was a bit hyperactive and I didn't really know where I was. So I was jumping on my bed in a dorm where there were 12 other people, and the matron came in and started to hit me. That was the first physical abuse that I'd experienced as a child. Like, I'm lucky I didn't experience it up until then. So that was a bit of a shock. Couldn't really get to sleep, but I did my best. Like, what am I doing in this environment? The next morning at breakfast, we were served up sloppy porridge, which really fulfilled the cliche, which you can imagine. It was absolutely disgusting. Anyway, I'd been lucky enough never to have eaten anything like that up until then, so I was pretty sickened by it. I vomited into my bowl, and then they forced me to sit there and eat all the vomit and the porridge in the bowl. I mean, that's pretty hardcore. That's a cruel way of treating people, but the reason I'm saying this is that was a massive shock to my system. I'd been very lucky up until that moment that I had quite kind parents, but then I was suddenly exposed to these authority figures. I thought, oh God, what am I supposed to do? My relatively carefree state of being turned into a permanent state of hypervigilance and fear because I wasn't sure where the next attack was going to come from, whether it would be psychological or physical. I'm lucky that I don't have any horrible images at home. I found this on the website terriblerealestateagentphotos.com. This kind of illustrates, it gets close to illustrating how I was feeling. If you look at their website, it's absolutely amazing. There are about 20 photos of this person's house, which is for sale in the United States, and each one is worse than the other. Like, I can't really deal with this. So this is my attempt at expressing what I was feeling there. Yeah, I basically learned that I had to put up a front. So I had to use my fantasy to create some kind of appearance of everything being okay on the outside. I also realized that I only survived the 3 years which I was there by retreating into some kind of parallel universe which I created inside myself. So basically I had a fantasy world which I used as a tool to survive there. And yeah, it made me feel pretty good. I realized that the thing I was really holding on to was something which was never going to come true, so I knew it was a fantasy at the time, but it was keeping me alive, which was basically every night before I went to sleep, I imagined that my dad would come and pick me up the next morning and take me home, that everything would be okay. And I knew it wasn't true, but I knew if I believed that, I'd get through the night and somehow manage to survive the next day. Yeah, I didn't only get really good at using fantasies to survive, I unwittingly learnt how to use it against myself. I got really good at faking illnesses. This is one of the books I did in art. Everyone else was making ones about my cat or my dog or my pony, and I chose illnesses and diseases of mankind. Yeah, my teacher wasn't impressed, but I loved researching stuff, particularly because then I could find out which symptoms I could fake, and they wouldn't be able to detect it. I got so good at this that I faked appendicitis and spent 3 weeks in hospital, which meant I got off school, which was great. Having faked it, and I'm pretty sure they noticed, but they took my appendix out anyway. Yeah, so by my early teens, I'd really developed my ability to fantasize, I suppose. I'd taken on the role of being some kind of ideal child persona and was a good girl at all times, but inside I'd somehow managed to lose connection with who I was myself because I was still trying to live up to everyone else's fantasies of what I was supposed to be. So I was trying to fulfill all their expectations without really knowing what I wanted myself. And when I hit my teens, I became suicidally depressed. It's no wonder, given what I'd gone through. Thanks, Ian. I knew you were going to laugh at the inappropriate moment. Yes. This is a small aside, but I actually asked Ian yesterday if he'd laugh in a really inappropriate time, and he did, so thanks very much. The next 10 years of my life were basically hell. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I somehow scraped by. This is me going slightly crazy. This was a rare moment of actually showing how I was feeling to the world. Things did start to look up, however, when I was studying in London. I met lots of Germans who were really nice and had a different perspective of looking at the world. And I decided I'd move to Germany after finishing my degree. So I moved to Göttingen, which is a small university town in Lower Saxony in the middle. It's great there. You can ride your bike everywhere. Your friends live next door. It's like some kind of ideal world. Anyway, after a few years of living there, I felt safe enough to start letting the facade down. Basically, it started to crumble of its own accord, and I really started to disintegrate inside. So I voluntarily went into mental hospital. Yay! This may not look like a very nice place. This is one of the hospitals I was in, but this was an absolute blessing for me. This was like a dream come true, basically. It gave me structure, literally, but it gave me a place where I could just let my guard down and really be myself, and someone would be there to pick up the pieces, basically. So I went from attempting to survive with not a very good life raft to realizing that I didn't have much choice, as in if I wanted to continue living, I couldn't go back to the old fantasies, like the negative fantasies of the world I was in, which I'd created and seemed like reality but weren't. I couldn't go back to believing those, so it left some kind of void in my belief. I was like, I don't know what to believe anymore, which meant there was a lot of potential. I thought, okay, if I look deeper into this darkness, as in into the welcoming jaws of the thing, whatever the thing is, then maybe I'll find what I really believe. Maybe I can create a different fantasy out of that. This is one of the amazing things about being a mental hospital, at least for me. I know lots of people in psychiatric institutions have had terrible experiences, but I'm lucky. I didn't have that. I had the opposite. We were given license to be crazy. We weren't only allowed to be crazy, we were expected to be crazy. And this is me and one of my friends clandestinely taking a camera into hospital. We asked the staff there if we were allowed to take photos for fun, and they said, no, you can't, it's patient security. And we were like, yeah, but we are the patients, and as long as we're not taking photos of no one who wants to be on it, then it's fine. So we stuck this camera in and started to take a whole series of photos, which is really funny. And this is us pretending to be crazy. I mean, we obviously are crazy, but we got to do fun things like this. I basically started to learn to be myself there because I was accepted however I was. Like, if I wanted to do this, it was okay. One of the things which really helped me was art therapy. This is not my basket, I hasten to add. We just happened to pick it up there. I did actually weave a basket, another cliche of being a mental hospital and occupational therapy. It was a waste paper basket, and I'm really sorry to about my then boyfriend having to receive it as a Christmas present. It looked terrible, but yeah. Anyway, art therapy really, really helped me. It helped me get far more in touch with who I was, simply by learning to manifest amazing ideas which I had. I had unlimited access to art materials and a really caring teacher who basically, he showed me that whatever I was thinking about, it was actually possible to put it into practice. He gave me the tools to do that. This is one of a series of cuddly toys, mutant cuddly toys, which I created while I was there. They're called Muddlies, as in mutant cuddly, haha. But I made about 200 of them. I got obsessed with making these cuddly toys. It gave me so much joy. And then I realized I was giving so much joy to other people by exhibiting them, by selling them, that I just kept going. Yeah, this is maybe not to everyone's taste, a product of my fantasy. But I'm pretty impressed with this. This used to be a disgusting IKEA wardrobe made out of corrugated plastic. And I thought, nah, let's pimp this. And I put all this fluffy stuff on it. And I had no training in any of these things, but you're laughing, which you can obviously see. But I was pretty impressed with this result. I thought it was great. Anyway, I realized I enjoyed the process of creative manifestation so much that while I was still an outpatient, I prepared a portfolio to apply to art college. And believe it or not, I actually got in. This is my portfolio case. It was a real labor of love. And though I was struggling a bit, or struggling quite a lot still with depression and anxiety while I was at art college, I had a lot of support. And that meant that I was actually able to graduate in 2012. So thank you, everyone. Which, interestingly enough, brings me to my final degree project. That's a really good example of how I've learned to use fantasy to create something positive in a creative manner instead of just being destructive. I invited a Lithuanian guru called Guru Ženklo TM. Ženklo means sign or symbol in Lithuanian, to give an audience and bless people in the art college in Kassel where I was studying. This is her website. I put the Lithuanian on purpose so you couldn't really read it, but you probably can't read it anyway. And it's got really tacky birdsong waterfall sounds in the background. Basically, she chose a toilet block to give her audience. And so people had to queue to see her. They had to queue for up to 3 hours sometimes outside the toilet to get an audience with this guru. She was in an individual cubicle and the door was shut. So people were ushered in one by one, but they never actually got to see the guru. They could maybe hear that someone was there, but they weren't sure if those were the volunteers who were helping out, because gurus need at least a massive army of volunteers. That's one of them there. Or if there was an actual guru in there, or if it was someone else entirely. So having spent 3 hours waiting to queue to get into this toilet, they didn't really know what had happened, and then left again. People's reactions were very mixed. This is a bit of toilet paper which she's blessed. That's a very unlimited edition. People's reactions were mixed. Some were really annoyed at the anticlimax, having wasted half a day just queuing to get to the toilet and not even getting to use the toilet in the end. But others said they actually really appreciated the process, that somehow they'd been left to their own devices. People had been asked to be silent whilst they were waiting, or at least very, very quiet. So they were just confronted with themselves, ultimately, in the process of waiting to see the guru, preparing for it, and also during their time on the toilet, and the toilet cubicle next to the guru, not really knowing what was happening. So they had to create their own fantasy version of what was happening there. And that tended to be what people created was ultimately down to their own expectations or their frame of mind at the time. Unfortunately, the people who were examining me were not in a good frame of mind at the time and didn't appreciate it, but a lot of other people did. And that seems to be the key to me, is that if you've got a positive frame of mind, or at least I can say for myself, I've realized, it's taken me a long time to realize that if I'm in a positive frame of mind, then I'm far more likely to be able to use fantasy as a tool for creative manifestation than if I'm in a negative state of mind. This may sound really simplistic to you, but to me this was a revelation. It only took me about 30 years to get there. This is a good example of this. This is me advertising my human dignity for sale. According to lots of national and international laws, you can't sell human dignity. Well, I proved them wrong. I sold my human dignity. It was cheap at the price. It was €1.99 to get a certificate confirming that you had some of my human dignity. And this was my response to having 3 different so-called mini jobs, so it's a bit like less than part-time job, and still not really managing to survive financially. It was a complete nightmare. I could have gone on the streets, could have complained about it, like there are lots of different responses to that. But I chose to make art out of it and make people aware of what was going on for me and lots of other students in my position by making them laugh and supposedly do something which was impossible, because you can't buy human dignity, but yes, you can actually. I felt like I was selling my human dignity involuntarily through my slave labor, effectively, but at least I could take it in my hand and sell it for the price which I thought was okay in that moment. So I was taking the power back. Which leads me to my current project, the Institute for Lighter Living, TM. It's taken me a while to realize, but I can use my fantasy to make myself feel better, so why not share that capacity with other people too? Basically, people come to me with problems. This is just a token person, she doesn't necessarily have any problems. People come to me with their personal problems, and I will offer them a solution, guaranteed. It may not be to their liking, and it may not necessarily be practicable. Another inappropriate laugh over there. He's already been through some ill advice. But I can guarantee that by the end of a session, you'll be thinking differently. I'll give you one recent example. Someone came with a problem that her mum was spending way too much time caring for her double amputee grandfather in a care home. And I suggested she set the grandfather on fire. He was clearly suffering, so she set the grandfather on fire, unwittingly, obviously. It was clearly a mistake, so it's not her fault. The grandfather dies, which liberates him from his suffering. It liberates her mother from wasting her life looking after him, and it stops her daughter, who was really worried about it, having to worry about it. I thought this was a great solution. I mean, obviously, if she's going to follow through, it's at her own risk. That's the kind of thing I recommend people do. I don't think she did that. I hope she didn't. If she's watching, please don't get in touch if you're being sued now. I don't recommend anyone does that, but I can guarantee you'll be thinking differently about the problem because you'll start thinking, oh, there are actually other possibilities. Somehow you've created the problem yourself through your thinking, but you can uncreate it by thinking differently and by using your fantasy. This is one of my favorite expressions, particularly for the morning. I'm not very good at mornings, as you can probably tell. Basically, I want people to think differently about their lives. Using my fantasy has helped me to think differently, though it's definitely been a double-edged sword. Like, I see in hindsight how much I created my own kind of hell by using my fantasy against myself in a negative way, and it doesn't actually have to be like that. Like, I could choose to use fantasy in a positive way, to go further towards connecting with other people, having a good time, creating something which I wouldn't have imagined could have been possible, but somehow is. Which is why I'd like to say, let's all do this instead of, I don't know, get depressed. Fantasize to survive, thrive, and feel alive. That feels like a really good motto to me, that we can use whatever creative powers we have for the good of us all, but particularly ourselves, and in that way somehow inspire other people to live a good life. Thank you very much.